all. It's 17th of September, Konflux Community Architecture Call, and we have first item in the agenda from Simon. Please present your topic.
Right, so this is from a story in one of the features that we put out. It's related to the OCI-based trusted artifact pipeline definition. So we've rolled that out. We've made it the default for new components being onboarded, but we still have the old pipeline available. And the original idea was we deprecate that and delete it. The question for you all here today is, should we just do that right away, or should we keep it around? I'm not sure if there are any people who especially need that version of the pipeline. It does have some different ways of doing things, like it uses volumes instead of OCI artifacts for passing data between tasks. So it's a little less secure. We can't do the checksum validation on the data that's getting passed around. But maybe there's some reason why we want to keep it. I was also thinking about the upstream question, like, is it useful for people who in the upstream who want to use a more conventional pipeline definition? It's not a very, like, it's a question we can easily change our minds about, so we don't have to agonize too long, but I just want to hear your thoughts, and if you've got a suggestion or some guidance, let me know.
Brian isn't here. I think he was the person that I've heard the most vocal about the desire to potentially keep it around. One of the biggest use cases for keeping it around is if you do have a lot of data. If you have a lot of data that you want to share between tasks, it's going to be much cheaper to create a PVC and use that to share that data than it will be to push and pull the data from the registry. It does come with more limitations because you don't have the ability to understand the data provenance that's being shared between the tasks as much. So if you use it, then there are certain things you have to watch out for. But I don't think that I don't imagine that it causes any issues keeping that pipeline around. It's not our default anymore. The TA task is our default. I don't know what the default is for the community one. But right.
Yeah, I think keeping it around is bad UX. Like, most people do not really know the difference. Most people probably do not care. Now they, click the drop down and they have a choice and they need to kind of worry about it. So I vote to remove one or the other. And probably my vote would be to keep just the OCI one. This is where Konflux, being opinionated is really, one of the places where that is. So that would be my vote. That's it.
I mean, it's even useful from a demonstration perspective if we have both of the types of pipelines available, and then we can, if we wanted to demonstrate what people can use with the PVC back pipeline and what they can do with the OCI back pipeline. So it might be useful from that perspective as well.
But again, it might be useful for us, but I'm kind of trying to put myself in the shoes of your average new user. They come into the system. This is one of the first screens that they're seeing, and the first questions they're being asked. And it's rather technical, right? You need to kind of really understand pipelines and understand the implications of various things to make this choice. And this is exactly one of the choices that Konflux, I think, should be doing for the users, just like making the choice to include certain scanners. So yeah, I think that by default shouldn't be there. Like, we can keep the code around, we can have how to add it to the upstream version or downstream version, or whatever, but I don't think it needs to show up in the UI by default.
You're saying
Yeah.
that it doesn't need to show up in our UI, or we shouldn't even be generating it.
Either UI. By default, again, we can, like, I don't know all the technical details, but if we can keep the code around and make it useful for very advanced users, that's fine. But I don't think it needs to appear anywhere by default.
I like Louis' suggestion. I was gonna say something like that. So if you're concerned about presenting people with a choice, if we make it clear which one is recommended, that kind of, is more about Konflux being opinionated. It might be the middle ground, or we could sort of, in reverse, we could put brackets deprecated next to things we don't want people to use. But yeah, I'm actually okay with Andrew's suggestion of keeping it around it. If it is interesting as a demo, or maybe comparing the two different pipelines, I'm not especially excited to remove it forever, but yeah, the UI consideration is worth thinking about. Anyone else think the brackets recommended is a good middle ground? That's a little UI patch, of course.
I mean, I think what would be even better for the UI. So I mentioned that I added the descriptions. We're also adding those descriptions to the Tecton bundles, or we're adding the first line of the descriptions to the Tecton bundles as annotations. So if we wanted to put that, we can add it to the description, and we should also be representing more than just recommended in the UI. Adding just recommended is probably simpler because you can do that just based on whatever the default is. If you have it's not even reading the actual config map, it's reading a proxy config map in Hack. So you can have Hack read that proxy config map and then just put what the recommended one is based on the default.
Is that got stories filed? Is that a backlog item for UI folks?
It's not. I think that there was I think it's a gap in the original implementation that was not caught and was not documented. We can certainly create a bug that the original implementation should have included this version being present.
All right, I'm happy with that. It feels more of a new feature than a bug, but either way. And so I think I don't want to hold everyone here to talk about this. I'm happy to close our story about removing it, and we can figure out the plan for the UI over time. I'm happy with that answer. Thanks a lot.
Thank you all for the discussion. So we don't have any more topics in the agenda. So before we wrap up, maybe someone else have some topic to discuss. Well, if no, then thank you all and see you next time. Bye.
Thank you. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.